We've created a new way of using SharpCloud that helps you build stories faster, create roles that determine who can see specific data, and eliminates the need to partition data based on audience, fostering a more comprehensive and collaborative SharpCloud experience for your whole team. With role-based access, we've simplified how data is stored and accessed. Instead of storing data across multiple connected stories, all of your data is stored in a single location, called the data pool. Think of your data pool as a massive story that contains all of your solution's attribute definitions and global data and is only accessible to solution architects. Your solution will contain only one data pool and many connected stories that use data from the data pool to create a unified, less complex, and more concise experience for your team. The job for solution architects gets easier with role-based access because they no longer have to break up data into different stories based on audience, but can simply add all of the data to the data pool and then decide who can access what later. But we'll talk about that soon. When working in your solution, your stories will pull data from the data pool, which will help you build new stories faster. So, what's the difference between global data and local data? Global data is information hosted in your solution's data pool that can be accessed by any stories within your solution. When global data is updated within a story, other stories within your solution will automatically include the most up-to-date information. Local data is data hosted in a satellite story, or any other story within your solution that isn't your data pool. This data is not shared into the data pool, or with other stories within your solution. Building and updating your data pool is easy. You can input data manually, or import data into your data pool with one of our connectors to other tools like Excel, Power BI, Jira, DevOps, and more. Once your data is imported, everyone in the solution can use it to build their own stories. Other users in your solution are given a user role by the solution architect. This role determines what global data the user can interact with in a story. User roles ensure that your stories remain clear and concise for your team by only showing them the data that they need to know, and only allowing them to edit the data they need to edit. Roles won't determine what actions users can do in your stories, such as commenting and changing views. You determine those with user permissions. Once a user is part of a solution, they can create their own story within the solution, leveraging the data from the data pool to build a story that's immediately up to date. Previously, data within stories needed to be managed independently of one another, but thanks to the data pool, your stories are more connected and easier to manage than ever. So, if every story in your solution can contain the data from the data pool, how is each story different? The scope is what information is being utilized within a story. So, when you're setting up a new story and you define the scope, you're designating what data is present from the data pool, creating a story that only contains what you need to tell your story effectively. For example, if my data pool contains all of my projects, I may only want to include active projects in my story scope, so that I don't see completed or planned projects. By making my scope more precise, I'm making my story smaller, my data more niche, and I'm narrowing my focus so that I can perform better. Just as you can employ data from your data pool when creating a new story within your solution, you can also reuse global components, individual views, panels, forms, and calculations into satellite stories for a simplified build, eliminating the need for developing multiple versions of the same component. Component stories can be used elsewhere within your solution. Just look for the teal header to know when you're working in a component story. While in a component story, you can designate the user roles which will be able to utilize components from that story, and the data scope so that you can preview the components with real data. No matter what changes you or your team make to the global data within your story, it'll automatically update the global data pool. For example, the lead engineer on Project Charlie knows that it's running behind. They changed the information within the item, and now the marketing team is aware of the delay as well. Now, as a team, they can better allocate spend, reschedule marketing efforts, visualize the impact on other projects, and support each other in other ways. Note that if the data you've updated within your story is local data, it won't make any changes to your solution's global data pool because it's hosted within the story itself. When a user with a creator subscription would like to create a new story within your solution, role-based access makes the process a lot faster. They can simply create the story, set the scope of their story, select what data they need to use from the data pool, and the brand new operational story is immediately available. Connect anything. Visualize everything with SharpCloud.